Welcome to the Thought Snob Podcast. I'm Paula Swope. Let's get snobby. I'm sitting here with music sensation and human being extraordinaire, Sarah Beth Terry.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Little sweet,
Innocent.
Sweet little girls from
Eastern Kentucky.
From Eastern Kentucky.
We're from the same mountain but different hollers.
Right. That's right. That's right. So I want our listeners to know how we came across one another. And so you said that you stumbled across one of my videos and that the content helped you get through your divorce. And since divorce is like so crazy prevalent, especially in the South.
Well, it's a trending topic, I think.
Right. Right, as always. So I just kind of want to rip the Band-Aid off and get into this. And so my goal for the Thought Snob podcast is to leave my listeners in better shape than they were when they tuned in. And so with so many people going through divorce, let's just start there. And so let's flash back to the day that you found me. Like, what was going on with you at that time?
When I found her, like I discovered a vaccine. A buddy of mine, it was COVID and everybody was just kind of holed up and like figuring stuff out. We're like, hey, you can get on this game and everybody can play it together. And there's this new thing called TikTok. And somebody sent me a video of yours and said, is this your cousin? Because y'all sound exactly alike. And I was like, who? And I said, well, I love her hair. And I'm like, get on there. And so then I started actually watching you and I was like, oh, she's for real though. Like, I just thought she was like cute and funny. And like you actually had substance, which, it's hard to come by,
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching and didn't know I was getting, well, I shouldn't say that. I always kind of knew I was getting divorced. I always introduced him as my first husband, even when we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, whatever, prophetic.
Yeah.
But I started kind of toying with this idea of, as being in my business, being in the entertainment business, you have to manifest, you have to create your destiny, you have to create your flight plan. And
Mm-hmm.
you're self-employed, so it's really kind of up to you whether or not you get promoted or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can't quit my band because I need me, So,
Right.
But I started watching you and realized we had a lot of things in common. And really, you kind of gave me the assurance that I wasn't the only one that's ever took this flying leap off of a cliff and gone, well, we'll just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this literally is nothing to lose. And
Right.
so, you had said something on one of your videos and you said, of course, I'm an Eastern Kentucky girl. And I was like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I messaged you that day. And then
Yeah.
we started chit-chatting. But that was just very, I don't believe anything is coincidence. Everything's in God's good timing and you just stumble upon it when you're supposed to. But it does make you feel like everything's clicking into place when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
So, and now we're sitting here talking together, and it all started when, both of us sitting at our kitchen tables doing other things.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly right. And so, how old were you when you got married?
I was 26, fixing to turn 27. And, of course, at that point, I was an old maid for like a good 5 or 6 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they all kept looking at me going, well, you've been to college. When are you going to get married? You should have had a boyfriend or a fiance when you left Transy, and you didn't. And I was like, well, no. So at that point, and it wasn't out of desperation. I really, at the time, thought I was in love with the man I married. Mm-hmm. You tend to romanticize things when they're in your benefit,
Yeah.
And it was just really funny to me that I was so settled.
Yeah.
I remember crying the night before my wedding thinking, like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, should I be doing this? Like,
Oh, so you had a weird feeling?
Oh, God. Well, we were only engaged for 16 days.
Oh, shit.
We got engaged on our first date and got married 17 days later.
Oh, shit.
And then he deployed to Afghanistan for 18 months.
Oh, shit.
And then we moved to Louisiana for 4 years.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, and he went to Italy for 2 years without me. It's a whole thing. It's fun. I'm going to write a book one of these days. I've been trying to write songs about it, but they're way too long.
So you both kind of lived separate lives.
Oh, yeah, I was a single married woman
Wow.
for a lot of my marriage.
Okay.
So, I was 26 and I thought, this is it. Sleep in the bed I've made and let's go and do this thing.
Right.
Of course, divorce was a cardinal sin.
Oh, yeah.
You make it work. You no matter what. No matter
yeah.
if he beat the daylights out of you, he drank, you cheated, whatever.
That's
You
true.
you shut up. Love
Yep.
covers a multitude of sins. And I thought, I don't want to be unhappy anymore. Like, and it wasn't, he was not a bad man. He was just not a very good husband.
Right.
And it's because he never had a chance to be, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he married me and left. And I was like, okay, what's our last name?
Right.
What's your
Right.
last four? Like,
Right.
No idea.
Right.
So, it is, but.
That's wild. And while we're on this topic about what is expected from women as far as marriage and divorce are both concerned in the South and in Eastern Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And this topic has popped up a lot here lately in the South. And Elvis Presley was like criticized to pieces for this. A lot of men have been criticized to pieces for this, for marrying women who were much younger.
There it is.
It's not a big deal. It was not a big deal. Like, my aunt was, I think, 14 when she married my uncle, who was in his 20s.
A lot of them dropped out of school at 8th grade or younger and was expected to help take care of the younger children at home and help to kind of train in the homemaking profession at that point. But I mean, keep in mind, these were people that were raised by a generation that couldn't vote, couldn't drive, couldn't leave the house, couldn't have a job, couldn't wear pants.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they were restricting it. It's all they knew. And when they teach them that to their children, and then they teach it to their children, and you see what I'm saying? So there was this expectation that this is what you did. You trained for it. Like, every day my granny had supper on the table at 5 o'clock when Papa got in the door.
Oh, yeah.
Every day. And
Every
you better hope
day.
she was on her deathbed if it wasn't. You know, or we was going out to dinner, so it's still hair and makeup on at 5 o'clock. Like,
Yes.
and so I'm looking at the big into ancestry like you are. And of course, you have to be in Eastern Kentucky so you don't marry your cousins. So you're like, wait a minute, who's your people? But at the same time, you're talking about divorce and you're talking about the age gap.
Yep.
You know, I remember my Aunt Ethel was 5 years older than Uncle Manny, which that was like a scandal. She went for a younger man. Oh my God. That was not heard of in Eastern Kentucky.
No.
There was always between a 7 and a 15-year age gap between a husband and a wife. And I mean, even up until the late 90s, I remember people like cousins in my family, like they'd be in their early 20s and marrying somebody 35 or 40 years old. And nobody batted an eye. And it wasn't, I guess, frowned upon. But if you looked at that as a generation in the world today, if a 14-year-old was dating a 23-year-old, everybody'd lose their mind.
They'd lose their mind.
And, you know, you think about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was no malice behind it. They either met at church or in a social setting, or
It
their
was the
families
norm.
knew each other, or it wasn't, there was not a predation kind of mentality.
Not at all.
It was, oh, I'm not related to this family. We could marry these farms together. I think it was that simple. It wasn't a matter of, I like them young, you know, like, I don't think it was that. You had to look too at these men. These men were oftentimes awarded property or awarded some kind of stipend for their military service or for being first sailors in an area or whatever. And you have 1,800 acres all of a sudden that you have to work. Well, you're going to have to find some kids. A 40-year-old woman's not going to give you but one or two if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
If she's 16 and she's got birthing hips, you know, good Lord, how many of our grandparents are one of 12, one of 15, one of 20 kids? And I'm like, it's not because they were Catholic or Mormon. I was like, it's because we needed help.
Right.
They had to have a big family. We had a farm. That was how you survived.
Yeah.
But you look at that age gap, and it's become marginalized by society now as a taboo subject. It wasn't out of lust or promiscuity. It was out of necessity and reproduction
It was
and
the
preserving your
way.
family line.
It was the way.
It was the way. You had to find a young, fertile woman that could carry on your family line.
Yeah.
And regardless of how old you were, you come back from this war, well, you know, I got to get married. I'm 35. Okay. Or I'm 25 or I'm 24. Again, all these standards of what time you got married have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I got married at 26 and was considered an old maid. Even my ex-husband, he was 7 years older than me. Now, had we dated in high school, that would have been frowned upon.
It would have been.
You know, had I been 18 and he been 25, oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
But I was 26 and he was 32.
Not a big deal.
33, not a big deal.
Yeah.
So it changes as you mature, as you get older. But the hurry is what bothered me. This
Pressure to get married.
incessant urge to check it off your list. And I thought that I got it all in order. You know, I graduated high school with honors. I went to Transylvania University, graduated in 4 years, got my degrees, went to Nashville, did my thing. You know, kept my knees together, made sure that there was no loose ends to tie it. And got married and did the fairy tale wedding and did the fairy tale, let's keep the home fires burning. I married a military man, and I was raised in it. My daddy was military. My grandfather was military. My brother's military. And I just fell into my role. And the more I was in that role, the more I understood that I really didn't belong in that role.
Yeah.
And then I panicked because Granny was so good at it.
Right.
She made it look effortless. She did hair for 50 years and had supper on the table every day. You know, Mom made it look effortless. She worked a J job and she raised both of us, and her and Daddy have had a wonderful marriage for 45 years. What was I doing wrong?
You didn't belong there.
Why couldn't I fall into my role of, I cannot wait to get up and cook him breakfast? Like, it would come to the point where he would wake me up and I'm
That's
like,
how
oh
I'm
God, did
feeling.
you wake up today? Like, it's just terrible to think that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was ill-formed from my role. I kind of keep hearing this quote come to my ear. If you compare a fish to how well he can climb a tree, he'll think that he's dumb his whole life. I was in the wrong lane. And I think I was meant for that role, but not at that time in my life and not with that particular person. So I was really good at what I did. I'm a good homemaker. I'm a good cook. I, give a pretty good back rub if I have to. I can make a cheese ball. But that wasn't the checklist. Like, I had to have the kids. I had to have the house. I had to have the good job. I had to have the perfect marriage. And I have none of that. At 40 years old, no children, no land, I got divorced and was like, I'm done. I planned my entire future right up to my epitaph on my tombstone. For what?
Right.
For what? I spent every 2 weeks balancing a checkbook and freaking out of where we were going to get the money to pay for food. Keeping up with the Joneses because we had to have the new vehicles. We had to have the new credit card stuff. We had to have that sectional. We had to have that Xbox. For what?
Right.
The moment we got divorced, I talked to a soul of those people. Not one.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not one.
Yeah.
Now, the people that I was best friends with up until the moment I married him, they all came back. And it just shows you that God kind of puts people in your path that's supposed to be there.
Oh, absolutely.
And the time they're supposed to be there. And sometimes God gives you an out and he puts a hole in the fence and you just keep putting a wheelbarrow in front of it or putting a flower pot in front of it or acting like it ain't there. And it reminds me of that old story of the man that was in a flood and him going, the Lord's going to save me. And a rowboat comes by and says, get in, you're going to drown. No, Lord's going to save me. And then a little motorboat comes by, get in, you're going to die. No, Lord's going to save me. Finally, he's on the roof and a helicopter goes, get in and you're going to drown. And he goes, that's okay, the Lord will save me. Well, he drowns.
Right.
And he gets to heaven and he said, what the hell's up?
Right.
Lord said, good God, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter after you.
Right.
And I feel like we're in that same... We fight God. We fight destiny. We fight the universe, whatever you want to call it, your creator, your destiny, whatever your purpose is. When you fight your purpose, shit falls apart.
It does. And it's what gets ingrained into our subconscious beliefs. And I want to... No, we're actually right on track because I want to point something out here because I made a note about this. So the first critical spurt of brain development occurs between the ages of 2 and 7. And so during that time... And I'm explaining this in layman's terms because I'm not a brain scientist. But so during that time, a child basically just soaks up everything they see, everything they hear.
Little jugs have big ears.
Yeah, and they believe it. During that phase, though, that what you soak in has a lasting effect on your development. And so these untruths seep into our subconscious mind. And it's those untruths that get like really comfy in there if they aren't forced out. And so that's why we get into this box that society has made. We get in it and we feel like a tiger in a cage, but we stay.
But we decorate.
Oh God, yeah, we decorate.
nest.
Oh, we decorate it up.
It's like, I don't like this
Decorate
box,
it
but
up.
you could use curtains.
Yeah, and right. And maybe if I buy that rug, I'll feel better. I mean, it's
I
like
definitely need that rug.
and so that's why we stay in those situations because we think we're supposed to. And in Eastern Kentucky and any rural county, like there is a strong correlation between poverty and an expectation of defeat.
There it is.
And so when you're raised like that, you expect the next bad thing to happen. And so that causes you to live in fear and stay in fight or flight all the time. And so when you get into a marriage that you don't want to be in, you don't know what to do. So you just stay and accept that defeat. But
Well, we were also conditioned with the mentality of you made your bed, you lay in it.
yes.
Regardless of you were taking accountability.
Yes.
And they, as everything in rural America, they take it out of context and beat the wrong point to death.
Yes, it's all out of
Every
context.
sermon, every Chinese
Yeah.
fortune cookie, every proverb that Granny passed down to you that you
Right.
should live by was probably part of a bigger thing. And one of my greatest examples of that is everybody knows the quote, imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
You're missing the best part of that quote. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a big deal on that quote.
Yes. Yeah.
That's as good as you're going to get, is what that quote's saying. You've hit your
Yeah.
Everest.
Right.
Congratulations.
Right.
You're a knockoff.
Right.
But no one is saying that. They're just, well, imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. I'm like,
Right.
that's like saying, well, for God so loved the world.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You have to finish the...
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of these old wives' tales,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they just heard part of it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, but not as good as one in the pot. Like, I don't, like, maybe they're missing a part. Like,
Yeah.
And we've all been conditioned with this same,
Mm-hmm.
this is how it is. This is how it's got to be. And mind on the mission. And
Mm-hmm.
you submit to your husband and you do what he says. And I'm like,
Right.
I remember distinctly when I got married, when I looked over the vows, just like this, the preacher had the sermon printed out how he wanted to do it. And I went through with the red marker and I went, we're not going to do this obey shit. No. Love and honor, hell yes. Obey, nay, nay, says I.
Yeah,
went
obey
through my
is-
entire, like,
Yeah.
nope, not doing this, not doing this. Like I was going through a car contract, not paying the service charge, not paying the fuel charge. Like I was
Yeah.
negotiating my marriage license, which I thought that should have been maybe a red flag. But I just went running through it like it was the grand entrance at Six Flags. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right.
I won.
Right.
Well, no, you didn't. So it's just, but you're conditioned, like you said, with that mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and it's browbeaten to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was gospel, then it becomes folklore, then it becomes legend, then it becomes bullshit.
Yeah.
And it takes sometimes that many generations to figure out those steps.
That's right. We've been talking about marriage for the most part, and so I want to just switch it over to the divorce piece for a second. And so looking back, now that you're post-divorce, how would you say that your perception of the whole experience has changed? Because things are so different when we're in a situation and when we're out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the downfall with not only my marriage, with most marriages, is the lack of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you become comfortable, and then you become complacent, and then you become indifferent. And in my marriage, the first cardinal sin was indifference. Like, he just stopped giving a shit. And I really kind of stopped giving a shit too.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that someone had prepared me and said it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. And I knew marriage wasn't like that. I wasn't naive.
Right.
But at the same time, I didn't know it would be that much work.
Hmm.
And now looking at it, it shouldn't have been that much work. Now on this side of it, I'm like, okay, y'all weren't compatible in this area. You didn't talk about a family plan. You didn't talk about a 5-year plan. You didn't talk about how your careers would mesh and meld. You didn't really get your family dynamic figured out before this all happened. Like, his sister hated me the entire time that we were married, and my family really was just cordial most of the time to him because he was always gone. So,
Yeah.
they really didn't know him.
Right.
To be fair, I didn't either. So, looking back, I wish I had invested the time and realized that I wasn't an old maid at 26. I could have taken my time. And I didn't have to jump headfirst into, I wasn't Sarah Beth Terry anymore. I was Sergeant Blank and Blank's wife. I adopted this. I lost my whole identity to be part of this military family unit. And I watched these women on post wear their husband's rank like a wedding ring. My husband's a staff sergeant. Did you go to basic? And I never had that kind of pride about his accomplishments. I was proud of him, but I didn't try to take ownership of it. And a lot of the people that I was surrounded by did that. And I feel like that wasn't just a military thing. I feel like a lot of wives, and husbands too, honestly, align themselves with their partner's accomplishments. And that's, I feel, when the levee starts to break, because you still have to have your own strengths. And yes, me and Sean share victories, and we share failures together, but I don't try to take stuff from him. Like, I never got to try to, like, somebody tells him he's a good drummer, and I'm like, thank you. That has nothing to do with me. I just gave him a song to play.
Right.
But it's the same principle across it. So looking back at it now, no, I probably wouldn't have, bet half my shit and got the government involved. Because that's basically what marriage is.
Yeah.
And after I got out of it for like the first year, I was very jaded. I didn't think I'd ever love again. I even hated like watching like my favorite movies.
Sure.
Like, I hated watching love stories. I was like, that's not true. That's bullshit. Like.
Well, your identity was way different.
And no hard feelings, like I said, against the ex-husband. He wasn't a bad guy. He just wasn't a very good husband.
Right.
And to be fair, I probably wasn't a very good wife. We just weren't compatible. But thank God that was the only problem that separated us, and that he wasn't beating the shit out of me, or that I was starving to death. Or I've been in that band. I'm a 40-year-old with fake teeth because my first boyfriend beat the living daylights out of me. And thank God I woke up and was like, he must have knocked something loose in my head, where I went, I shouldn't be doing this.
Oh, my God.
And I thought I got out of that situation and everything was great. And I met my ex-husband. I thought, well, this is it. This is so much better than what I had. And then there's the other 40-year-old nobody tells you. Comparison's a thief of joy.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute thief of joy. But you can't help it, because you're like, okay, I've traded up.
Right.
Like, okay, he's so much better than this guy because he doesn't beat the shit out of me. Well, okay. And then I just took that as to be what I deserved. And then I finally was like, no, I deserve more. And I got into another really toxic relationship. And I saw this pattern in myself. And I thought, okay, I have a savior complex. I can fix it. Whatever it is, I can fix it. And now with Sean, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day about it. I said, I know it's, again, comparison's a thief of joy. I said, he just brought me flowers. She goes, what'd he do? I said, his flowers are proactive, not reactive. Like, he just is like, here's some pretty flowers. And I said, and it was so nice. I said, and then the other day, I said, he cleaned out the shower drain. I didn't even have to ask him. And she goes, Sarah, you're celebrating mediocre things in a relationship. Like, these are what normal relationships are like. Yeah, he should tell you he loves you. Yeah, he probably should take out the trash. Yeah, you probably should fix his coffee. You're celebrating what is a normal standard in a committed and loving relationship. And I thought, well, I ain't never had one of those.
Oh, I hadn't either.
I've had committed and I've had loving, but they were never simultaneous.
Right.
you know, so
Yeah.
with him, he's been so jaded and I've been so jaded. We've been so kicked down by the people that we've been with that we're kind of like two shelter pups that have been adopted into the same house. We're like, can I trust you yet? God,
Yeah.
You seem like you might bite me in my sleep.
Right.
And we're learning how to heal around each other and with each other. But looking at the divorce perspective, I believe in marriage. I believe in the institution of marriage. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I believe that a lot of people today look at marriage as a convenience or security rather than an end goal. Yeah, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was that movie, Mona Lisa Smile? Like, they all went to the girls' college just to get married, like, as soon as they get out, and then they didn't have to have a career. I never was, I wanted somebody to be a partner.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody that was equally yoked as I was, that could keep up with me in conversation and would also have my back in a bar fight if I got a little mouthy.
Yeah.
You know, like, I need an equal partner. And sometimes you don't know what that's going to look like. You don't know who that's going to look like. You don't know what, anything about that. And everything that you had anticipated that for yourself, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And, it's always that joke, life's what happens when you make other plans,
Yeah.
And I hate that all of these old adages are coming and smacking me in the face now, but I get it. So my perception really of marriage hasn't changed. My perception of how to be in a marriage has changed. Had I spent the time and attention to detail that I do with Sean, and considered his feelings like I do Sean's, and then I thought, no, Sarah Beth, I'm not going to beat yourself up, because you did do that. You just didn't have somebody that did it too. And that's where it comes into the equal yoke. Relationships aren't 50% or 100% all the time. It's not 50-50. It's, well, I give my half and he gives his half. You're not splitting rent. You're not roommates. If you have that understanding and you have that communication and you have somebody that's willing to talk about it and not deflect or shut down or pull the narcissist card. I love that everybody knows that word now.
Oh, I know. It's trending. And narcissists are not on every corner. Thank God they
No,
aren't.
but assholes are. There's
Yeah.
a fine line between cocky and confident, and there's a fine line between narcissism and just being an asshole.
Absolutely.
And I was in a toxic relationship with a narcissist. I'm like,
Whatever.
he told you to drink Coke instead of Diet Coke. I don't
Yeah.
really think that's...
Well, people automatically jump to that when the relationship doesn't go the way they want it to. Well, he was a narcissist or she was a narcissist. I was raised by a narcissist, like a legit narcissist, and there is a clear distinction between a real life narcissist and a normal person.
And a disciplinarian and someone who has been necessarily strict but stern. And, some people might see my daddy and be like, that's a narcissist. I'd be like, no, he's an asshole. His
there's a
sugar's
difference.
probably low, and once he has a bite to eat, he'll probably even out. He's not a narcissist.
No.
He doesn't gaslight us. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's a military man with a 35-year career. He's strict.
Right.
He believes in structure and being accountable, which I think is a lot of the problem now, is that not just across marriages and divorces, but across society, is that there's no accountability.
Right.
If your feelings get hurt, it's the other person's fault.
Yes.
If your feelings get hurt, it's, okay, if I didn't learn something in school, that's not my fault. That's teacher's fault now. That's my parents' fault. They didn't get me to bed in time. That's my school bus driver's fault. He dropped me off 15 minutes late.
Yeah, it's a culture of blaming. People get offended.
It's a victim mentality. And I'm so tired of being the victim of my own life story. You're either the villain or the victim.
Right.
How about you just take responsibility? Like my cousin, I won't mention names because she lives on TikTok, but she probably says, hi. She's on husband number 6.
Woo!
And she's like, I just can't find anybody worth a shit. And I was like, did you ever think maybe it's you? Maybe you need to read a book?
Yeah.
And I kind of look at that going, you do things, one time and it fucks up. Okay. 2 times, well, fluke. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Maybe just take a beat and realize what you're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe this ain't cut out for you.
People who have been married that many times.
Serial marriers.
The people that, and there's also a clear distinction between judgments and observations. And so this is an observation I have consistently made because I actually know a few people that have been married 6 times.
Well, we're in Eastern Kentucky.
We're in Eastern Kentucky. And
some of them are married 6 or 7 times to the same man.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
That's more common than you think.
It's absolutely common. But they all behave the same way. And you never, ever hear them talk about what they did wrong. It was always what the other spouse did wrong. Always. It's always like this sob story, victim mentality. And then they get married again, and it's the same old story. It's all bullshit.
They're so mean to me.
Right, it's all bullshit. Yeah. And it's not love. They're just chasing happiness. They're chasing that idea they've got. Oh, this is going to happen and I'll be happy. No, that's not. It's not how it goes. It's just not. But as I hear you talk, it sounds to me like that your divorce brought clarity. What'd you do with your music career when you were married?
Oh, what music career?
Okay, so you weren't. Oh, so you didn't do your music.
So we got married at the wedding. I said, I wrote this song for you. He goes, you write music? And I remember my mother from the front row going, "Oh dear God," like audibly. Like he didn't know I did music at all till like the moment we got married. And I was like, that's kind of my identity. Like I just assumed you knew that about me. Like that's just Sarah and music. It's kind of synonymous, you know.
Yeah.
And he never really negated it, but he didn't really support it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really encourage it. He was like, well, you do what you want to do.
Hmm.
And so when he got stationed overseas in 2015, I was living in Louisiana, and I'd kind of dawdled. I still played music. I still did gigs, but I wasn't chasing like I was when I lived in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, this is my I made my bed. I got to lay in
Right.
it. You know, I've married this guy, and I'm an Army wife, and I'm in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I'm 12 and a half hours from Nashville. I'm just going to make music here. Mm-hmm. There's music people down here. Mm-hmm. I started a music studio. I taught kids. Like, anything I could do to kind of keep music rolling. Mm-hmm. And he still wasn't... He tried to be as involved as he wanted to be, I guess. Like, he would kind of learn enough about it to where he wasn't bored at a piano recital that I would hold, but he wouldn't come to a bar and watch me sing.
Gotcha.
Like, it was a very fine line of what he would support. And it got to the point where I was just ripping and running, and I'd go out on Wednesday and come back on Sunday and play music by myself, and he'd be at the house, and he wouldn't even help me unload the car. Like, he was just so indifferent towards it. Mm-hmm. So, when he got deployed to Italy in 2015, I went back to Nashville. Mm-hmm. I was like, why am I staying down here?
Right.
So I started writing again and getting back into gigs and chasing it really, really hard. And he said, okay, when I retire, you can do music full time. So in 2018, he retired. I jumped headfirst into music, and he was like, no, I don't want, you can do it. I don't want to go with you. And I was like, I thought that was the point. Like, you can go with me now. We can do this together. And I don't want to go. So that just kind of dampened my spirit because truthfully, Paula, music has got me through a hell of a lot more than any man ever has. Mm-hmm. So then I got to thinking, well, you know, what kind of country music singer would I be if I haven't got at least one divorce under my belt?
Right.
You know, and I take full responsibility for the dissolution of my marriage. No, I wasn't the first one to commit a sin. He kind of stopped caring, and he kind of was more concerned with playing Xbox than he was playing with his Xbox. So,
yeah.
You know, now what is commonly known as his Xbox. You know?
Yeah, right.
So I had an affair, very openly had an affair, wrote a bunch of albums about it. Like, was not, said, I did not hide it at all.
Right.
I messed up. I fucked up my marriage. But at that point, it was already broken.
I was getting ready to say, what was there to fuck up?
There wasn't really anything to fuck up. I was just kind of seeing what I could get away with before he finally, who was going to play chicken first and pull the ripcord.
Right.
Like, I even brought the guy I was having an affair with to our house to have supper with my husband. And they sat at the same table and had the same meal and talked about golf. I was very, what's the word? Just not braggy about it, not brash, but I was just very, not ambiguous. Like, I was very chalant about it. Just like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I am. And kind of put my feet in the mud and just basically wanted attention. I was throwing a temper tantrum. And he just didn't care. Which was fine, but at least we knew that point. Like,
you were testing him and it
That
failed.
was it. That was it. There was nothing to save. And so now dating someone who's been through the divorce ringer too.
Yeah.
And it's so sad that at our age, and we're all in the same generation, we've got at least one under our belt. You know, we laughed about this on Friends 20 years ago because Ross had been divorced 3 times. You know, like that was the running joke on Friends. And now I'm like, that's not really out of the realm of possibility. Like, that's kind of a norm now. Like, everybody has that starter wife or starter husband, and then there's the mulligan that you try to forget, and then usually the second or third will stick. It's usually a very serious relationship or a really brief second marriage. But we always laugh, we call it the mulligan wife. Like, it's like this one don't really count. It's a practice round. So, and if we count it from that perspective, then I've had my 2 big relationships, and now I'm on the one that'll stick.
Yeah.
And not all of them end in marriage, and not all of them end in a divorce.
Right.
Sometimes it's bits and pieces of both.
Well, and I have a totally different perspective about divorce because I personally haven't been divorced. Will was my first marriage. Now, he has been divorced. But I said when I was a teenager, I was going to write a book that was titled, I'm divorced but never married. Because I went through my parents' divorce. Like, I was right in the freaking thick of that divorce. And it was brutal and it was exploitative and it was
How old
a
were you?
nightmare. Well, their divorce started really when I think when I was about 14 or 15. I feel like their marriage was just completely done, but it was final when I was 18. And when you and I were talking earlier, now I was a size 6 when they divorced. I was a size 16 couple of years later. Like the my appearance changed. I didn't look the same. I didn't act the same. And because nobody ever mentioned mental health to me, I
What was
had
that?
right. I had no idea that I was completely traumatized by everything that had happened. I mean, anybody would have been.
I'm like, who wouldn't be?
It
In your
was
most
horrible.
formidable years to be on a battlefield for 4 years.
Oh my God! And then like when they split and the divorce, and when the divorce was filed, it was done in 30 days. And they had been married 20 years, I think, 20 years. And Mom and I left, and a week later, Dad moved his woman in that he'd been having an affair with.
Well, there's that.
And her daughter, and he gave her daughter my bedroom and started calling her by my nickname.
Ooh.
Now that's a fucking narcissist.
Yeah.
If people want to,
That's Ike Turner.
listen, it is Ike
Or
Turner,
Tina.
Ike Turner shit. And so when you're on that level, dealing with someone like that in the middle of divorce, no matter what your role is in the divorce, you're in it. Like you feel like you've been divorced.
I've never been in the Super Bowl, but I swear to God, right? I mean, like
Right.
if you're there on the sidelines, you're feeling every bit of that.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it takes a toll. And so when I was in it, I felt like it was the end of the world. But when I got out of it, then looking back, that led me, although years after that were pretty rocky, but it led me right here. Because I didn't want that. And I knew I didn't want that. There was nothing about me that wanted that.
Well, you spent your life not landing in it.
Right. But that was my norm. Like the way that I grew up, I thought that was normal. And it showed me it's not normal.
Mm-mm.
That's not normal. And I'm like, okay, I definitely don't want that. So what do I want? And so with me in my post-divorce scenario, it led me to what I wanted and what I was meant to do. And I feel like your divorce did too. It led you to what you were meant to do.
Well, I look at the chain of, I love that, the paper trail. I love to go through the paper trail.
Yeah.
And I crack up, I'm like, well, if I hadn't done this, I would have never done that. Never. And I'm like, okay, back up, Sarah Beth.
Mm-hmm.
Because at 40 years old, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the most prolific and more inspired than I've ever been in my 30 years of writing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have the confidence on stage. I sing with my eyes shut for a reason. Like, I have no confidence on stage.
Really?
I'm a big blowhard. This is all of a sod. Like, I'm a big old, if there's a small group, I'm life of the party. I get up in front of people and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I have to have a guitar. I have to have a prop.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my comfort, is I just went into my own head and played music until they clapped and then I could quit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my escape. And I'm probably the only person that that escapes by standing in front of 20,000 people.
No, it makes sense.
Like, I'm disassociated from that.
Mm-hmm.
And in small groups, I'm life of the party. I'm comedian. I'll keep rolling all night. But if you tell me to tell that story in front of 50 people, and I'm like...
So the bigger the crowd...
If I have people to interact with, I'm fine.
You're fine.
Like, if I was a Matt Rife person, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But just to get out there and talk, I'd be like... So you're ugly and bald. What's your story? Like, I'm awkward and I don't know what to do. And I come across as an asshole because I don't know how to be.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God for those moments now. Because, like, I'm looking at it going, I never had anybody that supported what I do. And clearly you have found yours like I have found mine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that whole difference of mentality. It's this... I always knew I was going to be a musician from the time that I was born. I always knew that was going to be my thing. And I didn't realize all the pitfalls that came with that career choice. And I'm not just talking about the sleazy man and backdoor deals and stuff like that. Like, that's in every industry where there's pretty girls and
Oh,
money.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
doesn't
I've been
matter what you're
offered
doing.
money as a waitress to do some shady shit.
Oh,
Like, you know.
yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
not just in the industry.
No, not at all.
But you kind of learn the pitfalls. It's like going back to college as a returning senior. You're like, oh, don't eat there, and this place has food poisoning. Like, you know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I have, like, my feet finally in the ground, and I'm going, okay, this is what I'll put up with. This is what I won't put up with.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I plan to do, and what I hope we can all kind of push to together. But I didn't know that's who I was until I had time with myself.
Yeah.
I had always identified myself, aligned myself with somebody else, and pushed them into the spotlight before me, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Ex-husband, let's get him promoted. You know, girlfriend, boyfriends, ex-friends, whatever. It didn't matter who it was. My best friend in the world. She needs to be Miss Estill County.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I'll be Miss Congeniality. I'll run next year.
Right.
And I don't know why I've been pushing everybody else into the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Eastern Kentucky, generational, gothic narcissism, you know,
Yeah.
is this you submit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, you don't brag.
hell no.
You don't put yourself first. Were you ever told you were getting above your raisin?
Oh, all the time. Sarah Beth,
I
you're
was
getting too
told
big
that
for your britches.
all the time. Like, no matter what I said, because I was a big dreamer and I always wanted to be really wealthy. And the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to be a country music singer. And I had, all these dreams and I want to do all this stuff. And I would get really excited about something. And immediately Dad would say, girl, you getting above your raisin. I'd be like, because it was just like deflating a balloon, because he's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then poor old Mom, she just wanted me to go to IBM and work in a factory.
Well, everybody wanted us to have a better job than what they had. And they wanted us to have a better life than what they had.
And to my mom, that was where it was at.
Job security, insurance,
Can you see me and
401k.
you working in a factory?
If you used to be working for anybody, I have a problem with authority.
Oh, I
Just
can't.
like a big problem with it. And it's not authority. I'm bossy. I'm really aggressively helpful.
I don't want to be controlled.
I don't like to be controlled. I don't like to be contained. I don't like to be told what to do.
No.
I don't like anybody that kind of wants to raise their voice at me. And I think that's always funny because I adopted this mentality of Queen Bee 100 years ago when I won the Kentucky Spelling Bee at Derby Week. And that started the bee thing with me. Mom bought me a bee brooch at the God House gift shop. It was so gaudy. It probably needed with a big Julius Sugar Baker scarf.
Nice.
On it,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just collected bees. And I was Queen Bee. I was Sarah B. And I just kind of got into this. It was a joke. I was making fun of myself. I'm not royalty. I've never won a beauty contest. Like, shut up. Like, I was in band. Like,
Mm-hmm.
But one of my producers looked at me and he said, if you're the Queen Bee, then start acting like it. And I was like, what's that mean? He's like, boss some people around. I was like, what? I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of put me into my own power. I just learned how to stand in my own wind and be like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And if I don't like how you're doing it, no, we're not going to do it that way.
Right.
I'm allowed to speak up for what I want. It's my career.
Yes.
It's my band. It's my music. It's my name on the damn truck. It's my name on the damn T-shirts.
Right.
I don't think anybody would argue with that.
No.
But
Speaking of that, it's time for me to put on one of your hats.
oh, fantastic.
I'm gonna start with this one.
The fancy ones
I'll
that
start with the fancy one.
I started doing when I started raising birds. All of those feathers are locally sourced, by the way. So that's one of my favorite things about my hats is that I don't go to Hobby Lobby and buy shit. Like
No, there's a story
Source,
behind
yeah.
this.
So there's stories. There's all kinds of fun fluff.
That's awesome. Okay. So, and I like it too, the way you made it, because I can
Well, I know how you are with sun hats. You do better with sun hats because your hair's so thick.
tilt it to the
You can
side.
tilt. You could Michael Jackson it. It's part of my ruffled feathers collection. That's all my feather stuff is called ruffled feathers.
Cool.
Because I've been ruffling feathers my whole life. Why not name some more shit after it?
That's right.
No. Anyway, but it looks
That's-
good on you.
Well, thank you. I like it. I like it. So while we're on this topic, people like us are usually guided by some sort of vision.
Yes.
And last November, I took Mom to see Winona Judd at the Palace, at the Louisville
queen.
Palace. Yes. But she told a story, and there's something that I didn't know this about Winona. I did not know that she was a meditator.
Fantastic.
I did not know that. And she has been a meditator for a long time. But I just didn't realize she was a spiritual person. And so I went in there that night and I got exactly what I knew I was going to get. And that was a vocal freaking powerhouse of a performance. Oh my God. But what I didn't expect to get was spiritual inspiration. And she told the story. And she said that I think she said she was as young as 10 years old, and that she knew that she just didn't fit in. Like, she knew she was going to be a rock star. And she said they were always sending me outside because I was unruly or I was, whatever. She said, well, I just go outside. I'd play my guitar. And she said at 10 years old, she changed her name from Christina to Winona because that sounded more
rock star.
And she said that she told people when she was little, y'all are going to wish that you'd been nice to me one of these days. And so when she said that, it resonated so much. And I'm like, well, she was using the law of attraction and manifestation before she even knew it. Because I know where Winona Judd is from, and they
It
do
ain't very
not.
far from where we're from.
It is not. Mom loves to tell about the Judds living in Morrill, Kentucky. But I thought this woman was using the law of attraction and manifestation and didn't even realize it. Because I know that nobody said manifestation to her. Nobody said law of attraction to her. Nobody talks that way where we're from. Did you have that vision of being an entertainer?
Oh, from the moment I was born.
Really? So looking back, what age, what's your earliest memory of that feeling? Dolly said she stood on the front porch and sang to the farm animals. She was manifesting.
That was funny that you said Dolly. I knew, Mom said I was singing before I could talk.
Okay.
And I would write songs all the time. Like, my babysitter would just have tapes of me just singing about whatever. Like, I just make stuff up. And I just thought everybody did that. I just thought that's what you did. Like, everybody did that. And I remember, was it 87? My parents took me, it was Silver Dollar City, and then Dolly had bought it out and made the big theme park. And all they had really was the train and that one water ride.
It was really small.
It was in her little cabin,
Yeah.
And Mom and Daddy took me, and they lost me in Dollywood.
Oh, shit.
And back then, there was no Amber Alerts, no park rangers, no GPS, just, well, your kid's dead. Like, that's
gone.
it. Like, there was no,
it's worst
I might
case.
be on a milk carton next week. They lost me, and Mom said, when we found you, Sarah Beth, you was pressed up against the plexiglass, just screaming. I don't know if you've ever been to Dollywood, but it's a two little cabin, and one's like their family room, and one's like the bedroom that all, apparently, 18 children and dogs and cats and brothers and sisters slept in. And all of her little, her toys and her crayons and all of her stuff was, displayed out on the floor, I was 4 years old. I was tore all to pieces. And Mom's like, Sarah Beth, we found you. It's okay. We found you. I said, no, they've taken Dolly to Nashville. They didn't pack any of her toys. Oh. I was so upset thinking Dolly was bored in Nashville. And Mom goes, Sarah, this isn't her real house. Yes, it is. It says right there. No, it's not, Sarah Beth. So I was convinced, if I was on that porch, the magic was on that porch.
Right.
And if I got to that porch and sang, I could be Dolly. And if I got to Dollywood and met her, she would adopt me and get me the hell out of Irving, Kentucky.
You had a plan.
I had a plan. And I didn't want to be Dolly. I just thought, that's how you do it. That's how you get there. That's how you buy your own theme park, and you're in a bunch of movies, and you've done a bunch of songs, and you have all these crazy clothes. You have to go stand on this porch and sing to these people, and then you have to go to this place and sing to these people. I was trying to find her path. And found my own by accident. Like, when I got to Nashville at 21 years old, I went door to door and go, do you work for Dolly? Do you work for Dolly? Do you work for Dolly? And finally some guy said, yeah, her producer's in that building right there. And I just walked in and I said, I'm here. He goes, yay. What are you here for? I said, I'm your new songwriter. He said, play me something. I said, okay. And that was it.
How old were you?
21, 22.
21, okay.
So I started working for her publishing company, off and on, writing songs and doing stuff. So when I finally met her, and I was like, this is it. I've been wanting to do this since, I want to talk to her and go, how do I do this? And you rehearse that moment when you meet your hero. And I was standing backstage at the Ryman, and I was going, Dolly, I'm your biggest fan. 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 She walks by me, and she goes, hi. I said, Dolly, you're my biggest fan. Yelled it at her and yelled that she was my biggest fan. And then I went, fuck. And I went, and now I've said fuck in front of Dolly and yelled at her. And Dolly goes, She goes, try again. And I was like, I'm your biggest fan. She goes, nice to meet you. And I was like, no, you fucked all this up. But it was just funny. And then I met her like 2 years later in the studio, and we had a whole conversation about that particular day.
Oh, my God.
But I was like, yelled at her. And I was like, oh my God, I've yelled at Dolly. So, but like you said, that was when I knew. Mm-hmm. I looked at Mom. I said, do you always know I was going to be a country music singer? She said, well, we knew you weren't going to be a doctor. I'm like, from birth? Like,
yeah.
Like, you can't get a countryer name than Sarah Beth Terry, you know? Mm-hmm. So I've planned for this my whole life. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting for it, you know?
Yeah.
And once I did that, I was like, well, now everything else is gravy. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of looked at it that way, like, well, I didn't have as many people at the show tonight as I thought I would. And I was like, I got to meet Dolly.
You got to meet Dolly.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So I have, like, those moments that are kind of check posts for me, like getting to sing, you know, with a couple of my heroes. I got to sing with Gretchen Wilson this past November and do a big show with her. And I've got to sing with Tanya Tucker, and and I'm not name dropping, I'm just,
no, you're
these are the manifestations.
Yes.
And I wanted a song cut. I got Craig Morgan to cut Whiskey. Okay, I want...
So you wrote that one?
Mm-hmm.
You wrote Whiskey?
Whiskey with Anthony Smith for Craig Morgan. Yes, yeah, that was one of our favorites that we got pitched that year. So he took
awesome.
it. It was during COVID, which was great because no one got to hear it. Mm-hmm. And it was just a big surprise for everybody when it came out. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, what's next?
Right.
But I feel like I'm off a launching pad now, headed to the next step.
Right.
And so are you. I mean, I feel like we had these dreams, mm-hmm. and now we're standing on a solid footing to be like, now it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And now we have to prep for what's coming down the pike.
I wouldn't have been ready 10 years ago. Mm-mm. I wanted to do what I'm doing now 10 years ago.
Oh, me too, but I wasn't at all mentally ready for it.
No, I was not ready.
I really don't think I'm mentally ready for it 100% of the time.
I don't know if we ever really are, because we're always changing, and I don't know if we ever really are, but I think that there are times when we are more ready than others, and that's when what we really want appears. And then we get what we really want. That changes us.
You got to be careful what you wish for.
You got to be careful what you wish for. And we get what we want. That changes us. We got to adjust a bit. But then we move on to something else. And so then that changes. And so I think it's just like, it's like this ongoing process. But for the most part, I think you're either ready for it or you're not. And I just was not really ready, honestly, until probably about the past year. I mean, I had to stumble and fall and make mistakes, and but now I'm ready to roll. Yeah, I'm ready to roll. And it's like when you are living your purpose, it's a whole different feeling. Some people go through their entire lives and they never ever figure out their life purpose.
That makes me so sad.
It is so sad. And that's why I refuse to conform. And it's like you said, no to society. And so people ignore that that feeling, that intuitive, nudge inside, doing what they really want to do. They just ignore it and dedicate their lives to doing all this shit that they don't want to do, and then it turns into work. And this doesn't feel like work to me.
This is fun. This is I enjoy every minute of what I do.
Oh,
even
me
the
too.
Shitty moments.
Me too.
I enjoy it.
Me too. It's like it's all worth it. And so when do you feel like most in the flow? Is it when you're on stage or off stage? Or when you're writing or when you're singing? Or is it just all in the flow?
It kind of feels like a snowball. Mm-hmm. A snowball doesn't pick if it's going to pick up trees or logs or snow or people. It has to keep rolling.
Sure.
And that's what I feel like. Like if I finally get my second wind and like I'll write a song. Okay, well, usually it's like 4-leaf clovers. If you find one, there's usually 2 or 3 right beside it because it's all connected. Mm-hmm. Same with songs with me. If one comes out, I'm probably going to puke out 2 or 3 more before the end of the day or before the end of the week. And usually that falls right into the middle of we're fixing to get on the road. We've got all these gigs lined up. We've got radio interviews lined up. It's not just one thing. It's like an object in motion stays in motion. So once I get on a roll, then I feel like I'm finally in my zone because once them train wheels are moving, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just keep shoveling the coal. I'm good.
Right.
But I have to get rolling because if I don't get rolling, I'll sit there and rest. And so, like you said, it's never really, sometimes it's on stage, sometimes it's off stage. But it's the balance of finding where that energy level stays most consistent and most productive for you.
Yes. Yes.
And you tap into the God source, and that's where all the creation
Exactly.
comes from.
Exactly. It's like inspired action. And Taylor Swift said that she got up in the middle of the night and wrote Lover. Do you have those moments like that
all the
of
time.
inspiration? It just hits you. It's like it's that inspired action.
It's not even just inspiration as much as I think it's just channeling and instrumentation.
Yes.
I feel like the song's already out there. That's why so many songs sound similar.
And it's coming through you.
It's because everybody's channeling into that same radio wave, but it's whether you've grabbed up there and got the idea or not. It might just be hitting the conveyor belt and come back around.
Right.
And if you miss it, it's gone. But
Right.
I've been in rooms with people and they go, "Well, I had this idea for a song yesterday," and they'll say the idea, and I'm like, "I said that same thing yesterday." Like, what? It's
Synchronicity.
already out there. It's just who's tuning in to what frequency at what time.
Right.
So, very, very similar with the music. Like the other night, Taylor Swift's one of my favorite things to quote. I always say that. I said I was Taylor Swifting before Taylor Swift was Taylor Swifting. Like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
putting boys in songs and instead of aiming at them with a gun a long time ago.
Right.
Literally, that's why I started playing guitar. My daddy traded in my gun for a guitar when I was 18.
Nice.
Never played guitar in my life. He said, "You need to play this because you have a temper like your mother. And you'll spend your life in jail. So you need to write songs about them when they make you mad instead of kill
Right.
them."
Yeah.
Which would be the obvious next choice.
Could you play by ear?
Yeah.
I figured.
My piano teacher hated me growing up because I'd be like, play the music and look at him.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, "But I heard this on TV." And he's like, "I hate it. You get up, I can get us to you."
Yeah.
But,
So I got your new merch on.
see, this is the new merch, the new
merch,
hats, the new
merch.
custom hats.
Since we're talking about all your talents here, I got to put the
Well,
new
I
merch on.
appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
And I don't ever think that I'll be Dolly. I don't ever think I'll even be a good counterfeit Dolly. I might even not being a Dolly impersonator. Like, I'm not even going to be there. I don't write for the radio.
Right.
My whole mission, my purpose, as Dolly would say, find out who you are and do it on purpose, is to be a songwriter. I'm a storyteller. Mom would call me a liar, but I say I'm a storyteller. If you put it over music, it's not a lie. Anyway, I'm just
Our
kidding.
perception is reality.
Exactly.
It's our truth.
And being raised in the military, perception is reality. So it's a very fine line. But I look at it going, okay, here's my game plan. I'm not going to be Carrie Underwood. I'm not going to be Dolly. There's already those people. I'm going to be Sarah Beth. And hopefully be pretty good addition of it. Because I'm not just a country singer, and I'm not just a songwriter, and I'm not just a comedian, and I'm not just a bluegrass picker, and I'm not just... And I'm looking at it going, but my mission is to tell the stories. I write for the reaction, not the radio. I write for my audience, not for the awards.
Yep.
I write for the moment, not the money.
Right.
Which is why I'm 40 and living in a camper, in case somebody's keeping track. And this will be the only time I ever say this man's name, but I even had his epitaph written. It said, "Here lies Jacob Bonner. He never had a prayer. He prayed and prayed for a good wife, and the devil sent him Sarah." I literally had it written. And then I blew up. I cashed out my life insurance. I sold everything I own. For what? It's stuff.
It's stuff.
And it brings us back to divorce.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Sean about it. I said, it doesn't matter in the end of it. He goes, "What do you mean? Who's going to get the houses and the cars and the blah, 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 blah?" And I said, "It's just stuff.
It's just stuff.
They make more of it every day. Every day. And they bring it to us, right to our house, right to our front door.
Yep.
We win already. We get to get up every single day. Today's Thursday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was at work today. I had a blast at work today. I got to talk about my music. I got to hang out with my friends. I got to have a couple cigarettes in L.A. I don't know anybody else working a 9 to 5 that could be like, "Tomorrow we're going to go to the lake."
Right.
Or let's go have breakfast somewhere today, and then we'll get started on music. We're living the dream.
Yes.
And a lot of people try to equate money with success, and that's not it.
That's only one measurement.
Again, they make more money every day. Print it off.
That's right. It's
thousands of
everywhere.
times.
So when I brought up the Taylor Swift story about her, getting up in the middle of the night and writing Lover, which is by far my favorite by her. That's some genius damn songwriting.
It's
I
deep.
was like, damn, that's good. So, and I wanted to know if you had those moments, because when we're meant to do something, that's what it feels like. It might not make any sense at the moment that you wake up at 2 a.m. and you just, it's like something's pushing you, and you get out of bed and you go do something that doesn't make any sense at that moment, but you end up creating something genius. And so many people, and I'm kind of metaphorically speaking here, will lay right there in that damn bed and say, I'm not getting up. They question their intuition when their intuition is telling them how to get to where they can be to live the dream and be happy and live their life purpose. But they just don't do it.
Well, it's whatever you want to call.
Everybody has it.
Right. Whatever you want to call God or the creator or
Yes.
destiny, whatever. I believe in God, was raised in it. My relationship with God has never been in question. I do have
me either.
I do have a problem with some of his followers.
Well, I have a problem with organized religion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's where I'm getting at.
I'm out on the church.
I'm not cool on that.
No.
But me and God talk all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to think that the reason that I'm woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or wake up at 6:15 in the morning, or every day for the past 6 days be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and be like, oh, I just had to pee, or oh, I got to take a time on my head, certain, or oh. No. I feel like God's going, Sarah, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, fire, yard sale, get up, you know. So I get up and I either pray or I write. Sometimes I do both. But speaking of Taylor, 90% of the stuff that I've written in the past 6 months is woke me up in the middle of the night. I put a song on Facebook night before last that woke me up. I was like, I got to get outside and write this real quick.
I saw that.
That was a 15-minute song.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. That's when, and I feel like your muse is like a granny, a southern granny, that really wants you to come help her plant tomatoes. Now hear me out. When are you off, Paula? 2 weeks? You can come help me plant them tomatoes?
Yes,
Okay. And then she'll call you every day. 13 days. Unless you can get here tomorrow, we can plant them tomatoes. And then the next time you see her, we going to plant them tomatoes? I got them tomatoes in the car if you want to plant them. That's God.
Do it now.
Get up.
Yeah.
And I talk myself out of it too, and then I'll regret it every single time.
Every single time.
And it's like
it'll keep coming back.
It keeps coming back until you complete your mission.
Yeah.
It's just like a video game. You cannot get to Princess Peach unless you whoop Bowser's ass. I don't care how many times you lay down on the first level. Mario has got to beat the dragon to get to the next level. You have to get up and fight.
Yes.
You have to get up and fight. You have to get up and do whatever your mission is. And a lot of people will be like, well, that's God talking, or that's your cortisol levels, or your premenopause. Or how about you just get up and either pray or work until you either fall back asleep or figure shit out.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Oh, yeah. Because that inner knowing never goes away. And it's like, my mother spent her whole life working in factories, broke her body down, had nothing to show for it, never had any money. She was always broke, but worked her life away. I mean, this woman dedicated her whole life to that. But what she always really wanted to do, she wanted to write freaking poetry, and she's pretty damn good at it. And
but that wasn't a viable career option for somebody in her generation.
No, she didn't even tell anybody.
That's like a philosophy
She
major.
kept it a secret, like it was an embarrassment.
And now she would be celebrated and published.
Yeah, now she started writing poetry.
Good.
And Will and I put her in a position to where she can. She doesn't have to work anymore. And she started writing poetry, and I'm like, you need to do something with it. And she'll still say, just dumb it down. She has none.
In the women of our
it's so sad.
Of our whole demographic, of our region, of our generation. We're taught body image, and we're taught pride, and we're taught, stand in your thing, girl, go girl. And I'm like, I wish one person had said that to 14-year-old me.
Oh, my God, I know.
I wish one person had said it to 16-year-old mama. I wish one person had said it to 20-year-old granny.
I know.
Who was basically taking speed and drinking tab, as all women were in the 60s. That's why they were all this big around.
Right.
I'm going, that no one talked about mental health. No one talked about bipolar or what it meant. Now, bipolar was always kind of it was almost like a slur.
It was.
They're like, oh, she's just bipolar. I thought it was like, well, she's crazy as hell.
Well, my mom's, let me see, it would have been mom's grandmother, my great-grandmother. She had serious mental health issues, and I'd tell a story about her in my book. And she wasn't diagnosed properly. There's no way, because mental health was not understood back then. But she had some serious mental health issues. I'm pretty sure she was bipolar. I'm pretty sure she was schizophrenic, depression. I mean, you name it. This woman was bad off. And you want to know what their theory was about her? That she went swimming in ice cold water when she was on her period, and it drove her crazy.
Well, I mean,
Now,
especially if you're wearing one of them wool Kotex, it would drive you crazy. The chafing alone.
right, these are
And
awful.
just horrible. But you got to think about it. At that time,
They believed that.
they believed it, and you have to remember that women were often put into Waverly Hills Sanatorium, not 15 miles from where we sit right now.
Yes.
For hysteria, i.e., in 21st century, being horny. I'm looking at all this going, no one ever really appreciated it. It wasn't just mental health, it was hormones.
Well, and you know, hormones weren't discovered until 1906.
Well, that would make sense why my granny never had any then.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
but the way women were, treated,
we were crazy as hell. And to be truthful,
crazy bitches.
I mean, my great granny went through the change and she ran into the woods for 2 weeks and like I've never been found. And
There
that
you
was in
go.
the 40s.
I get
she
it.
just ran away. She's like, I
get
can't
it.
deal with it. And I get it now.
Get it. I
She
get
didn't
it.
have the internet or cigarettes. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at us going, it's not just cortisol or Jupiter's in Gemini and Mercury's in Gaither.
Oh, hell no.
And, God's coming back and the Pope has now instituted, in case you run into Jesus, here's some guidelines. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
What is happening?
With our world? My whole thing now is just maybe, if everybody just smoked a little weed
I mean,
and took some ashwagandha
mm-hmm.
and maybe sip some peppermint tea on occasion for the upset stomach and the clear head space, life wouldn't be so shitty.
No.
But we're trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yes.
And not realizing that the bullet wound was one of them damn hollow point mags that's got 75 fucking holes out your back. That ain't gonna heal nothing.
Mm-mm.
You gotta patch every single hole.
Yes.
And you can't do that. So now we're looking at this going, how do we figure it out? And I love that people are so self-aware about mental health, but at the same time, y'all ain't really doing nothing about it.
Nobody's doing anything about it.
You're
They're
just
talking about it.
identifying it.
They're identifying
They're
it.
not offering a solution.
Not offering a solution, and then almost using it as an excuse.
It's not an excuse. It's an obstacle.
It is, and it's a legit obstacle.
Oh, you're not kidding. I mean,
Yes.
there's days I don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
And people, well, you're lazy. No, I mean, I'll get so deep in a rabbit hole, dark depression, that I can't even muster the energy to step foot out of bed because I'm like, I'm done. Whatever I do today is just fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's the devil talking, or your own negative self-esteem, or your whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Good and evil, light and dark, up and down, left and right. There has to be a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of times because, yes, we've identified that there's mental health, and yes, we have depression. Yes, we were all locked in for 4 years until we couldn't go outside and get sunshine because that also gave us COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get over the excuses.
Yeah.
Turns out it is fucking me, Paula. It is me. It's every fucking bit me.
It was me too.
And I joined Al-Anon, which is the most passive-aggressive thing that a person can do. Be like, well, if y'all aren't going to go to a group, I guess I'll just go to therapy for all of us.
Yeah.
But thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned to recognize my triggers and go, I can't save everybody.
Right.
I can't pour out of an empty cup. I can't stand on top of this mountain and scream orders when I'm still digging ditches at the bottom of the holler. I have to find my balance. Because I'll tell you a secret, Paula. The same people clapping at your coronation are the same fuckers that are cheering at your beheading.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to find who you are. You have to stand in your own strength. You have to go, no matter what the fuck gets thrown at me today, me and God's got this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so fucking hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's so very, very hard. I know I've used my favorite 4-letter word like 9 times. I think I
No,
can
it's
say it
okay.
150 more times before they stop sponsoring me.
No, it's okay. But you've got that awareness. And
It
that
took
comes
a
with wisdom.
long time to look in the mirror and see who I really was.
Yep.
And not who they had told me I was.
Right.
And not who they told me I had to be. And who I should have been. And why weren't you good enough? God damn it, I am good enough. I'm the daughter of a king. And I'm not talking about Corky Terry. He's a good guy. He's not king. But find who you are and do not let anybody take it away from you. And I think that's what screws everybody up. Your candle's not going to burn any brighter by blowing somebody else's out.
I think this is like the perfect time to read this to our listeners, because this morning I was thinking, how would I describe Sarah Beth Terry? Elvis always comes back into mind, and he was at a press conference, and it was the press conference that was held before he played the Garden in New York City, and he was so humble. Talked about how he had to wait his turn, to play there, and he was just fucking beautiful. Oh my God. But he said, an image is one thing, and the human being is another. And when I thought about that, and I was thinking about you, I don't see there's an image with you. It's like pure authenticity, like on and off stage. And I am telling you that is an admirable quality that is rare.
I feel like I have the worst case of imposter syndrome that ever was. They'll figure out that I don't belong at the grown-ups table here any minute.
All the greats think that. Everybody who is great at something has imposter syndrome. And I dealt with that for a very, very long time. And then I read this on your website.
Ruh-roh.
And whenever you think that you aren't good enough or that imposter syndrome creeps in, you need to read this. In the wilds of Kentucky was born a gifted, extraordinary creature who never quite fit in. She rebelled day one against the crap served up by society and called mandatory. With a long draw of a cigarette punctuated by a swig of aged Kentucky bourbon or a swill of L8, she looked at society and said impolitely, no. She is both yin and yang, drawing from classic poetry, mountain witchcraft, and Bible-toting preachers. She tests every boundary presented to the breaking point. She writes songs with a depth and truth that challenge the listener to face their ugliest pain, to feel it, scream it, and make it known without shame. At the same time, she will catch you off guard, laughing so hard at things that are hilarious and obvious, but mostly overlooked. Sarah Beth Terry doesn't overlook. She sees. We are all her subjects. Even if she has never met you, she has written you. Her songs sing invasively as if she has walked into your heart, your heartache, or your bedroom. Her pen is a night vision camera to your soul. Her songs will be so on the mark, you will find yourself looking around to see if anyone else knows she is singing about you. But is she? Or is she singing about her own life? Hard to tell. That's what makes her Sarah Beth Terry. Don't make the mistake of overlooking this obvious extraordinary because she doesn't fit the glass slipper. Glass slippers are all fairy tales. Sarah Beth is real, unabashedly, unapologetically real. And after you have had real, nothing else will ever be enough. And the lady that wrote this is it Devon O'Day, author, hit songwriter, and really cool radio chick.
She was on WSM and the big radio stations in Nashville for like 25 years. Like, this woman is, she's a lot like you. She's also a healer and a life guru. She's my spirit mama is what I call her.
Well, she nailed you to a T. And,
well, thank you.
I think that this is a great place to wrap up, so we can go have a martini. All right, thanks everybody for listening, and you can find Sarah Beth Terry online just about everywhere, right?
Everywhere, and Spotify, iTunes,
I'll link
Google,
you. Yeah,
everywhere.
Website.
Yes, everything. Sarah's with an H, like the Lord in the Bible intended.
Yes.
The Thought Snob Podcast with Paula Swope has been brought to you by Thought Snob Media in association with Special Purpose Studios. All production, mixing, and sound engineering by me, Will Swope. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. please take a few seconds to give us 5 stars and leave a review. See you on the next Thought Snob podcast with Paula Swope.